Recently, there have been several violent anti-Semitic incidents in New York State. In a show of solidarity for New York's Jewish community, Stewart Bromberg, Jewish Federation of Western Massachusetts Chief Executive Officer, joined a recent march against anti-Semitism in Lower Manhattan. I spoke with Bromberg about his participation, as well as his reaction to a spike in anti-Semitism closer to home.
It was a solidarity march. There have been a lot going on, not just in New York and not just in New England, but everywhere, and not just in the United States either. So anti-Semitism seems to be in an upswing right now, and this was a march to say, we're here, no fear, and we're not going anywhere, basically.
Because, as you say, the most recent violent incidents that we've heard about have been in New York State, but certainly, unfortunately, Massachusetts has not been immune either. We saw Smith College had swastikas written several places on its campus over the past year. In Great Barrington, there were anti-Semitic acts. And we know from research from the Anti-Defamation League, the most recent numbers available are from 2018. But Massachusetts was the fourth highest state in the country for anti-Semitic acts.
That is correct.
Why do you think that this is happening?
Well, we also have a larger concentration of Jewish population in Massachusetts than many other states.
Yeah.
So that is certainly part of it.
Overall, though, why do you think that we're seeing this concentration of acts of hate and anti-Semitic acts?
I think that if people don't understand other cultures, it creates fear. And fear often creates hate and violence. And so some of the things that we're trying to do is to educate the community, and we're taking it back and starting in the school system because we want people to understand, and that's the place we have to start.
What age group and what are some of the teachings?
So our first phase is going to be bringing in middle school and high school age children, and what we're trying to accomplish is to help them understand that we're all different, but our cultures may be different, our customs may be different, our celebrations may be different, but we all are living in the community together, and the strength of the community is very important. And we have to live and work and get along together and understand that some of those differences aren't that important.
Right. You are the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Western Massachusetts. You've been in the region, back in the region about a year and a half.
Yes.
But you've been working in the Jewish industry, in the industry for 30 years.
Yes.
Are times different now than, earlier?
I would say that the number of anti-Semitic incidences are increasing. And, I've worked in different parts of the country as well. And there are some areas that I was surprised to see that there were no incidences of anti-Semitism.
Why do you say that? Surprised in what way?
Well, so one of the communities I worked in was in Louisville, Kentucky. And there seemed to be this incredible relationship between the Jewish and non-Jewish community. And when I started talking to people in both parts of the community and asked why that is, the non-Jewish people who live in Louisville said to me, because before the Jewish community established itself here, we didn't have the services, we didn't have the professionals, we didn't have the job opportunities that we have now. We respect the Jewish community for respecting our community, not trying to change us, but trying to help us and get along. And that is something that I think is a traditional Jewish value. I was brought up to believe that, people have differences, but they have the right to have those differences and different beliefs. And as a Jewish child, I was taught that we should respect those differences and maybe learn from them.
Speaking of tenets of the culture, Derek Hoffman, who's your counterpart in the Berkshires, she runs Jewish Federation of the Berkshires, wrote a letter to the editor to the Berkshire Eagle, and something that she said in that letter stood out to me. She said, quote, "We've not been the best allies to others marginalized by hate and bias. Our tradition teaches that we should not reproach neighbors for imperfections we see in ourselves." Do you agree with that statement?
I do.
And why? What stands out to you?
I just think we can't expect respect from other people if we don't offer it to everyone else as well.
And when she's speaking specifically about teachings that have kept perhaps members of the Jewish community more insular, what is she talking about?
I can't speak for Dara. But, you know, the community has been very protective and has felt the need to be protective over the years. Some of it goes back to World War II and the atrocities that happened in Europe during those years. Whether people believe it or not is their own right to form their opinions. But that has created a feeling in the Jewish community of we have to protect each other, and we have to be careful, and we have to be vigilant.
Speaking of protection, the
Yes.
governor has come out recently to raise attention to the fact that there is a nonprofit grant available, about $1.5 million. Many of those grants have been used by the Jewish community for security purposes. Do you think that that money is enough, that there's enough there to provide the security that's needed?
Not if you're talking about the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The amount was just increased this week, officially signed into law. Last year it was $500,000 that was available. But most of those funds did not make their way to Western Massachusetts. And it's one of the things I'm doing is meeting with our legislatures and our senator and other representatives in our community to make sure that more of those funds make it to this part of the state.
How is safety and security being implemented in the region given that gap?
So it's one of our top priorities is the Jewish Federation of Western Massachusetts. And last year, meaning the year ended December 31st, 2018, I took a look at our budget and saw any surpluses that we had and pulled them together and got in touch with our constituent agencies and said, give me two lists. Give me a short list of things that we can help you with right now that aren't very expensive but are something that could help. And then give me a longer list because I'm also applying for a Homeland Security federal grant coming up, and we might be able to address more things that way. So we did come up with a sum of money, and we distributed among the people who gave us that short list. And in addition to that, the Jewish Endowment Foundation, which is part of the Jewish Federation of Western Massachusetts, also has a grant process, and we have funding available for grants. And any agency in the community, any Jewish agency and other agencies can apply for a grant based on our priorities. And our priorities for 2018 and 19, security was the number one priority. So if they had concrete plans to do something from a security standpoint, they could apply for a grant, and it would go to the committee, and if it was approved, they would get the funding.
What have you been saying to members of the community who are coming to you saying, we're scared, what should we do?
I'm saying being scared is not necessarily the right thing to do. We need to be vigilant. We need to be aware of what's going on around us, and we need to work together as a community, and we shouldn't lock ourselves in our homes and not go out and be afraid to do things. There are a couple different feelings in the Jewish community. There are those that say, we don't want to lock the doors of our synagogues and our places of worship because that's not being welcoming and open. And then there are others who are saying we need to make sure that our buildings are locked so that we don't have to worry about some of the things that have happened elsewhere in the country. I think a little bit of both is the prudent way to proceed. We need to be aware, we need to protect, and we need to increase the security measures that we have in place. And I don't want to talk about specifics because I don't think that's appropriate, but we are working on it. We actually had a meeting on Tuesday of the professionals from the Lower Valley and the Jewish agencies to talk about, we didn't get to finish our conversation, so we're doing it again next Tuesday, but I had 3 questions for us to discuss. Where are we now? Where do we think we need to be? And then the one we didn't get to start discussing yet is how do we plan to get there? So in addition to the state nonprofit agency grant that you brought up, that the governor just signed into law, there is also a federal Homeland Security grant process for the same type of things for nonprofits to apply to. We applied last year. We did not receive one of the grants, but it's a higher amount. The state grants are a maximum of $50,000. And I have encouraged all our agencies to apply for the grants because everyone in the community can apply for it. And the Homeland Security one, you can apply for up to $100,000. So I, as the Federation representative, will apply for the community, funds for the community. And part of the meetings that I'm having with the legislatures and the senator is to find out how we can assure that more of those funds will also make it to the western part of the state.